Good morning, all. Welcome to today's Cancer Healing Journey Talks. Myself, Annie Jose from Community Outreach Team of ZenOnco.io and Love Hills Cancer. Cancer Healing Journey Talks helps cancer survivors and caregivers to share their journey with vast number of survivors and caregivers who have traveled or been traveling through this journey. This can inspire and motivate them for their faster recovery as well. I would like to introduce today's speakers, Savio P Clement. He's a cancer survivor and he always also coached cancer survivors to overcome the confusion and gain the clarity needed to get busy living in mind. And he's also a certified wellness coach, and he has recently written a book which he will be talking about later. Yeah, that's about it, Savio. So over to you.
Wonderful, Annie. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. So hello, everyone. So my name is Savio P Clemente. I'm from the States. I live in New York. I live in the suburbs about 40 miles north of New York City. So my cancer journey really started in 2014. Prior to my cancer diagnosis, I was living a pretty healthy lifestyle. I was meditating daily. I was eating healthy foods, organic-free, organic foods, hormone-free foods. But my stomach started getting distended, getting bigger and bigger. And what ended up happening was that at night, sometimes I would get these deep night sweats. And I just thought it was just the weather. Fast forward a little bit, I went on a trip and I got at the hotel as well. And then I saw, when I came back to the States, I saw a naturopath, and the naturopath said to me, something is wrong with you. I'm looking at your blood levels. Something is really wrong. You need to go and get a sonogram or something. So I went to go get a sonogram. They wouldn't let me out of the office for about an hour and a half after I got the sonogram. They told me I needed to call somebody to pick me up. I'm like, what are you talking about? I just drove here myself. They're like, no, you really need someone to take you to the hospital. I'm like, why? Sure enough, about an hour and a half later, after visiting someone at the hospital who did a quick diagnosis on me, they admitted me to the 5th floor. And then I was told a couple days later, like a day and a half later, that I had non-Hodgkin's, diffuse large B-cell non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, also called DLBCL. So that's really the onset of my cancer, when I first found out.
Yeah. So, what was your emotional state when you realized that you were having cancer?
Some people are told they have cancer and they're home. Some people are told they have cancer and they can go back home. I was told I had cancer when I was still in the hospital, and I didn't get out of the hospital for 2 weeks. And during that process, it's really, obviously I was nervous, I was scared, but I was also, very strangely, I was also very ashamed that I had something like cancer. I know it doesn't make sense, but for me, I felt shame, I felt disappointment. And to a large degree, obviously, I was fearing death. I had a couple of roommates who I didn't see after a couple of days. I had 4 roommates over the course of 2 weeks. And when the doctors told me, I pretty much, I treated it like a challenge. And I said, as long as I do my part. And so for me, it was a combination of fear, obviously, but also a combination of determination.
So, how did your family took the news when you revealed the news to them?
So the first person I told was my sister. She actually works close by to the hospital. So she was the first one I saw, and I told her, and she fell apart. She literally could not handle it. I had to console her, which was a strange situation. My mom and my dad, found out from her because she couldn't hold it in, and she told them. My other sister was also in town. She lives in California, but she was in town that week, strangely enough. Shock, awe. They wanted to tell everybody. They wanted to tell my uncles, aunts, cousins, and I actually told them not to. I didn't want a pity party, and I didn't feel like I wanted guests to come in to see me at the hospital, especially since it wasn't like I was on death's door. It was serious. It was stage 3, but for me, it wasn't. I didn't want people to see me like a zoo animal, and that's what I was really kind of fearing.
Yeah, that's right. So what all treatment you underwent for your cancer?
Sure. So it's called R-CHOP treatment. So it's called Rituxan, and then a couple of other 4. One of them I know was vincristine, doxo. I really don't know some of the names. It's called R-CHOP, R-CHOP. I had 6 cycles of it. And then on opposite weeks, what I would do is I would do integrative modality. So I would do other things in addition to the chemo treatments. Yeah, so that was pretty much most of it.
So you also went for naturopathy treatment?
I did. So I did something called integrative treatment. So I did a combination of energy medicine. I did acupuncture. I did ozone therapy. I did a whole bunch of, I did red light therapy. I was still going to the gym. So I was working out, even though my eyebrows had no hair and my head had no hair and my body had no hair. I still somehow mustered the strength to do that. I also did a combination of just my own research on the flaxseed oil. I did do a lot. I did a lot.
Yeah, so just being curious, what about flaxseed oil? So can you talk a little bit more about it?
Yeah, so I took flaxseed oil as a nutritional supplement to enhance my nutrition, because when I left the hospital after 2 weeks, I lost about 18 pounds because they had to distend things from my abdomen. So they distended about 5 liters of peritoneal fluid from my stomach. And so I lost literally 18 pounds. And so I used flaxseed oil just for energy. I used it for, nutritional benefits. I use it for supplementation, just for my overall nutrition and food use. But yeah, that's.
Yeah, so throughout your journey, so who was your support system?
That's so interesting you asked that question. I will say my parents were in town, so they live here in the States, but they also travel to India a lot. So my parents are from Goa, India, and so they were definitely a support system in terms of like the physical aspect, like eating and nurturing. And then my sister, obviously, but I have to preface this by saying I'm just not someone who asks for things. I'm not someone who likes to ask for things. And I'm not someone who not that I don't need people, but I don't need anyone to do something for me unless I couldn't do it. So even though they were a support system and my friends were a support system, I really relied on my own self and my own being and my own knowledge and my own spirit and my own energy. A lot of it was just introspection. A lot of it was just figuring things out, reading. I set up Google alerts. I made sure to research everything I knew about the cancer itself. But I would say the majority of it was me. And then obviously I can't dismiss the fact that I had family and friends to help.
Regarding your experience with the doctors and the medical staff, so how was it?
Oh, that was fantastic. So I counted, I had about 19 different touch points from doctors who came at my bedside, asked me the same questions all the time, but I had about 19 of them. I had the primary oncologist, and then I had another hematologist as well, who was there as well. And then during my treatment, the team was great. The nurses, my chemo beds, I had to go every like 3 or 4 weeks in order to get my rounds of chemo. They were really helpful. Each round was about 5 to 6 hours. So they were very helpful. The staff was wonderful. I have to say the care was so wonderful that after I recovered, so I recovered in 4 months and I've been cancer-free for about 7 years now. I went back to the hospital after like a couple of months, and I said, I don't know what their names were. That day was a blur. Those 2 weeks were a blur for me, but I wanted to, so I bought them like some like candy and some treats to say thank you. And I did see the doctor who's there. She's like, I definitely remember you. And she goes, I'm so happy you recovered. But she's like, there was no need to bring this. I said, no, I wanted to just show my appreciation. I feel like sometimes in this work, you guys see so much death that sometimes it's nice to see a recovery. And it's nice to see someone thanking you, because it can be a thankless job.
Yeah, right. That was really wonderful. So when you go back to the journey and think about it, so what were the things that helped you be happy during the tough times?
Yeah, I think my spirituality. So I grew up Catholic, from Goa, most of them are Catholic. But I pretty much, not that I dismissed it, I just wanted to explore other things. So I'm more spiritually inclined. So, combination of really all religions, really, that's kind of my motto. But my spirituality really helped me, because I saw my physical body diseased, but I didn't see my spirit diseased. I didn't see my soul diseased. I only saw one aspect of myself. So that helped. I would probably say meditation helped a lot as well, processing emotions, processing feelings. Even though I didn't fully process it, at least I was able to unravel certain things. That definitely helped. And then I would say my grit and my determination. I took it as a challenge. I focused like a laser beam. I didn't leave any stone unturned. And I promised myself, as long as I do my part, that the rest wasn't up to me. And so I would say those three were definitely the most prominent parts.
Yeah, that's right. So did you make any lifestyle changes during or after the treatment?
So I was eating organic foods prior. I was eating hormone-free. I think the one thing that I did do differently was, I think during that time, because none of us know why cancer happens, right? If it happens, there's a reason, there's a cause. But I think if I was to reflect back that time, it was very stressful. I was going through a business partnership with a bunch of people, and that was very stressful. And I don't think I handled it or processed it well. And I think I internalized a lot. I'm not saying that was the sole reason, but I'm just looking back. So I just made sure that I'm sort of very vocal now in terms of what I want and need. I'm very clear about not feeling, but emotion, because I see the two as different. Feeling is like taking in what happens. Emotion is how you display that, how you process that. What do you do with that? And so that's definitely different. I also explored something called men's work. So it's a movement here in the US and other states of the country and other parts of the world, actually, where men have to rise above and become better as humans. Because men, to some degree, with the Me Too movement and all these things happening, men have to upgrade themselves. So that really helped as well, processing that. I would say other lifestyle, I mean, I was still working out, so I just made sure I worked out even more. I would probably also say too that I don't have, like, I'm kind of a yes man. Like, I like to say yes to a lot of things. So I just made sure that after that, I said no still in a kind way, but at least honored what I want rather than trying to always give and not get anything in return.
That was wonderful. So I'm pretty sure that cancer has changed you in a positive way. So what life lessons you got from your cancer journey?
Oh, many. So the first one is asking for what I want, like asking the universe or asking for what I want in terms of like being really clear what I want to do with the rest of my life. So it put me on a new avenue. My background is like IT, and I've done like other things when it comes to brands. But cancer has given me the opportunity. So now I'm a board certified wellness coach. I coach cancer survivors. That's what I do for a living. And I'm also a syndicated columnist. I'm also a book author now so my book is I Survived Cancer, Here Is How I Did It. I interviewed nearly 175 cancer survivors, and I told the story of 35 of those, including my own story. It launched 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, February 22nd. And it hit the bestsellers list in 3 categories. So that changed in terms of my career path, which was positive. Another positive benefit was that I was able to meet more people, connect with more people. What I thought was like a scar on myself, thinking of cancer as like a negative, has really been a positive. I'm able to connect with so many survivors who have taken something really horrible in their life and transformed it into something really positive. I think what it's also given me is confidence to tell my own story and be okay with the fact that I've had this situation happen to me. So that's been really a positive in my life as well. And then also just like sort of exploring this aspect of like, what is like the purpose of life? Like, I mean, I was always questioning that, but now since I've been close to death, it's really honed in that literally we all have only a few set time. No one's given, I put this in my book, no one's given a bed of roses in this lifetime, but beyond that, we've given a finite amount of time. So what are we going to do with the time that we have?
So what will be your message to the survivors and caregivers out there?
What would I say to them?
Yes, so your message.
I would say to them a few things. I would say, one, cancer is not a death sentence. I heard that line through many survivors over and over again. It's not a death sentence. There is a way. You need to act, and you need to act quickly, but you also need to arm yourself and educate yourself. You need to find ways to understand the cancer's weakness and non-weakness. And also I do a lot of embodiment work with cancer survivors. I basically go into the body and say, where does that emotion lie? And with cancer, someone actually in my book mentioned, you need to speak to cancer as if you are speaking to it instead of it speaking to you. You need to be more empowered. Second thing is definitely get a support system. I didn't really have a lot of it, and looking back, maybe I should have, but the support system can help you, and have people come to your appointment so they can write things down, because when you're listening to what the doctor is telling you, it could be a whole blur. Let them be your secretary. Let people help you, because if you don't let people help you, they feel disempowered and they don't feel like they don't know how to help you or what to do. So definitely do that. Also, try to figure out for yourself, what's the vision? What do you want to create out of the situation? What do you see yourself doing or being? And try to give it your all. And then lastly, I would actually tell them is what I tell, what the work that I do, which is I go into the 7 energy centers of the body. People call it chakras, people call it different things. But basically, what's happening with you mentally? What's happening to you physically? What's happening to you emotionally? What's happening to you spiritually, soulfully? What's happening to you vibrationally? And figure out what's happening to you in your dreams astrally. What's happening? Because those are signposts to try for you to figure out, to like reinvent yourself or transform yourself. There is a way out of this. Us survivors have proven that we can survive this. So you need to dig deep, dig really, really deep and figure that out.
So there are various types of stigmas around different types of cancers all around the world. So how much do you think is the importance of awareness so that all these stigmas can be, I mean, we can't remove it completely. So by providing awareness, we can reduce it a little bit, right? So how much do you think is the importance of awareness to the public?
I think it's really important for the public to understand that cancer is indiscriminate. It can affect babies to older adults. And sometimes people assume that you have a certain type of cancer because you smoke too much, or if you have like colon cancer, you did something wrong, and I think those things need to go by the wayside. So that's number one. I would say the second thing in terms of stigma is the stigma I did to myself, thinking myself as less than because I have cancer. And then from that, people would pity me. And so the stigma needs to be removed. The third one is what I said earlier, which is cancer is not a death sentence. It's not 100% guaranteed you will die from it. The stages are very important, and you need to be aware and awake for that. I think just education needs to be given. There's certain lifestyle choices that could maybe limit or decrease the chances of cancer, or at least to some degree, whether that's food intake, or whether that's energy or stress, or even like contaminants or whatever the case may be. Those are true, but you also need to be aware and get tested. Go to your colonoscopy. Go and get, if you have like something on your skin, go and get that checked. Be very proactive. And I think the stigma and the onus is on people being more empowered with lifestyle choices and not thinking as their doctor as being the only answer. You can actually research these things and then go to your doctor to verify and validate.
Right. So can you talk a little bit more about your book, which you recently published?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so my book, it's called I Survived Cancer and Here Is How I Did It. So over the course of about 5 to 6 months, I interviewed nearly 175 cancer survivors from all walks of life, men, women, different cultures, different, in different places, geographically. I've had someone from South Africa, many places throughout the world. And from that, I chose 35 cancer survivors and I wrote a book. And the book highlights their stories. So it's an interview format. I ask specific interview questions. And then I also tell my own story in the introduction. It launched 2 weeks ago on Tuesday, the 22nd February. And then I woke up the next morning and my book promotions team told me I hit #1 on Amazon bestseller in 3 categories, which was in books, ebooks, and also in new releases. The book for me is not really about my name printed on a book. I told my editor that really wasn't the reason why I wrote it. I wrote it because if I saw that book on day 1 in the oncologist's office, it probably would have put me on a different path. Even though I was determined and challenged, I didn't handle it emotionally well. And the stories are just so true and so raw and so wonderful. There's 2 of them who had cancer when they were really young. And one of them, reoccurred and she was able to beat it again. And the stories really go to the heart of the matter, which is what I say in the book is, it's like, these are the stories of individuals that had something horrible happen to them, but they're here to pick up the broken pieces. They're here to find ways to transform and to help and to support other people, unfortunately, going along on the path of cancer.
It was wonderful, Savio. So one last question will be, if you have to sum up your journey in one sentence, what would that be?
I would say the journey for me is the fact that you can come through the other side. You can come, what I like to say, cross the bridge between life and death. You can find a way to see yourself as something that's even bigger and greater than what you thought you would be. And lastly, I would say, listen to what your higher self is telling you, listen to what life is showing you, and also trust in something much bigger and greater than you. But yeah, and I forgot to mention that you can go on my website. It's isurvivedcancer.co, and you can find out all about the book. And of course, you can search Amazon, I Survived Cancer. Here's how I did it.
It was wonderful, Savio. So thank you so much for being a part of our today's session. And I'm pretty sure that this session will really motivate people out there who's currently going through cancer and who has already been through the journey. And thank you so much once again.
Thank you so much, Anae. I really appreciate it.